What's up, everybody? Back with another professional picks video, and this time we're talking baseball. Brought my man Joe out. Not a single soul in this world that I've met that knows more baseball knowledge than him. So you're definitely going to get some good, definitely facts and figures and opinions from him. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and give Joe some love in the comment section. This is his first video. He's going to kill it. I have no doubt in my mind. But make sure you guys let him know how much you're enjoying his insights to this baseball playoffs. But right now, we're going to really go through what I think, but mostly what Joe thinks about this playoff bracket and who we predict winning it. We align on most of the same picks, and I'm always going to defer to Joe's opinion in baseball. So you see here, Joe, on the bracket, you got the Astros, Yankees, Dodgers, and Braves getting that first round bye. The first matchup I want to talk about: 4 versus 5 seed in the AL, with the Blue Jays taking on the Mariners. Blue Jays being the home seed here, I believe, but. Blue Jays got good pitching here with guys that went out and got Gausman in the offseason. Manoah's definitely stepped up. But the Mariners, they got the reigning AL Cy Young, Robbie Ray, and, a lot of young talent there fueling that team. Blue Jays, for me, were a disappointment this year, but what do you think about this matchup here?
Yeah. First off, just want to thank you again for having me on. Super excited to talk some baseball. Postseason baseball is one of my favorite times of the year. You wait through the whole entire roller coaster of a 162 game season, and then October shows up, and I just love some postseason baseball. It's awesome.
Yeah, anything can happen. It's great.
Yeah. But with this matchup, so Blue Jays Mariners, I think it might be maybe the most interesting matchup for the wild card weekend. Obviously, the Mariners ending their huge postseason drought, the longest in American sports, with their first time in the postseason since 2001. But I mean, the Blue Jays lineup is just super electric. You got Vladdy Jr., Bo Bichette, who had a great month to end the season, and just like so many other dudes in that lineup. And like you mentioned, like, the Blue Jays do have some good pitching too. Mcneil, who I believe will be pitching in game 1. And with the Blue Jays having the home field advantage, they've had some great postseason moments over the years, specifically like the Jose Bautista home run, the Edwin Encarnacion walk-off. And, the Rogers Center just gets absolutely insane for these postseason games. I think that'll actually add a pretty interesting factor for this series. With all 3 games being in Toronto, I think that it'll be an electric atmosphere. And in game 1, if Manoah is going for the Blue Jays, he's the kind of guy that he just like feeds off that energy. He's like a super animated and emotional guy on the mound. I don't know if you saw him pitch in the All-Star game when he was mic'd up, but he was like super into it. He was super just like fired up and ready to go. So, and you see that in the playoffs when, guys are pitching in the postseason for the first time, they're like really amped up, and they have maybe like an extra mile per hour or 2 added to their fastball. So I expect Manoah to come out throwing darts, but this is just a really tough matchup for the Mariners in their first postseason back. Like I said, the Blue Jays lineup is just really stacked, but the Mariners have a great lineup too. They got rookie sensation Julio Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. It'll be fun to see him get his first postseason at bats. I expect he'll be a guy that kind of wants to, step up on the big stage. And I think the Mariners actually have the edge in the pitching with, they went out and got Luis Castillo at the deadline. He's been awesome. Logan Gilbert's a great young pitcher as well. So, I think this will be a really interesting matchup. But overall, I think the Blue Jays, the firepower they have in their lineup with guys like Guerrero and Bichette and Gurriel, I think that's just going to be a little too much for the Mariners. So I think I have the Blue Jays going in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if this takes all 3 games though. I think they might split, and it'll come down to the rubber match in game 3.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like one of the closer series in this first round of the playoffs, the wild card round, and not a lot of teams. Home field advantage definitely a little diminished in the sport of baseball compared to other sports, but Rogers Center in Toronto with the Blue Jays is one of the fewer places where the crowd definitely makes an impact. And will that have an impact on a young Julio Rodriguez and, a playoff inexperienced team like the Mariners. We'll have to find out, but I like your pick with the Blue Jays here. Next pick here with the Guardians, who most people, I would assume, outside of Cleveland, didn't think was going to win the AL Central, with the White Sox really having a terrible season this year. And then the Rays, who did not meet expectations this year, but still managing a way to find that last wild card spot here. To be honest, especially being a big Cubs fan, didn't watch a ton of these games. I like to hear what you have to say about this matchup.
Yeah, not meeting expectations is a great way to describe the Rays. I kind of feel like they were just kind of like there this year. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Rays were just like in a playoff spot like the entire season. But that's my main gripe with the team, is that they just don't have anything like really exciting going on in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good players. They got Ji-Man Choi, they got Randy Arozarena and Yandy Diaz, who three of them have had solid years. But outside of that, Wander Franco, who was rookie sensation last year, kind of had a more quiet season this year. I know he dealt with some injuries a little bit, but overall, like I said, I feel like the Rays were kind of just there. Does not take too much away from them, though, because they're still a very solid team. In game one, they'll be led by Shane McClanahan, who is in contention for the Cy Young this year. Yeah, he was great this year. And I think the biggest news for the Rays is that, they have Tyler Glasnow back now, who's coming off of he was out for almost the entire year. So it'll be really interesting to see, if he's going game 2 or game 3 or whatever. But the Guardians, yeah, like you said, complete surprise this year. Youngest team in baseball. They just play just like a scrappy, annoying, like frustrating brand of baseball. They don't have a ton of star power on the team. Obviously you got J-Ram, Jose Ramirez, who I think is one of the most underrated players in the league.
Definitely.
Yeah, but they were also led on offense by Andres Jimenez, who was an all-star this year, and then Josh Naylor and Stephen Kwan, who had a great rookie season. But I do like the Guardians pitching a lot. They got Shane Bieber. He's going to go game 1. Little matchup of the Shanes in game 1, Shane McClanahan versus Shane Bieber.
Yeah, that'd be a really good matchup.
Yeah. And then I think Tristan McKenzie will probably go game 2. And then you got Emmanuel Clase in the bullpen. Dude's an absolute menace, just throwing 103-mile-per-hour cutters out of the pen. I don't know how anyone's
not fair.
It's
not fair.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just like the Guardians in this series. They have a lot of the intangibles going. Like I said, they're just like an annoying and frustrating team. And I think they've just like figured out ways to win this year. And when you got Terry Francona as your manager, he's just got an unreal track record in the postseason. 2 World Series with the Red Sox, 1 in an American League pennant with the Guardians in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
He just knows what it takes. Biggest weakness, though, which could hurt them, is there's just not enough pop in that lineup. Like, they don't have a ton of power. Power is king in baseball right now, especially in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact stat, but they always show some crazy stat where it's like, oh, the team that hits the more home runs in the postseason in the last however many years is like 90-10 or something like that. So, you want to be hitting home runs in the postseason. So that could come back to bite the Guardians. So maybe they just need, someone in that lineup to emerge as, there's always a guy in the postseason who emerges like all of a sudden they just start hitting bombs, So
Daniel Murphy.
Yeah.
I think you're saying everything you're saying hits home. Like, Rays solid team, but nothing like jumps off the paper there. I think a huge underrated piece and an intangible piece in the postseason is like the clubhouse feeling going into it.
Yeah.
Like we said, the Rays underexceeded expectations, and they know they're a better team than 86 wins, whereas the Guardians are feeling high right now. They were competing in September for that division title, and they just absolutely blew away the White Sox. Clubhouse is electric, and I think that feeling matters a lot, because, as you know, baseball is just about the most mental game there is. And I think when you have those positive, outgoing thoughts like that, even that it's something you can't measure, but I think it makes a huge difference too. So I really like your pick with the Guardians advancing this round too. I think that makes sense. I think that Shane matchup in game 1 is going to be, that's must-watch pitching right there.
Yeah.
Talked about some good pitching. We're going to the Mets game. A couple of aces that, Showalter talking about maybe not playing DeGrom this round as to take on the Padres. Tough to have a 101 win season, and it would be almost disappointing the way the end of the season. But like I said, also in the playoffs, like the Mets right now, 101 game season, but they're feeling down on themselves. They knew they blew that division lead, and that like feeling is not something you want lingering around when you get to the playoffs. That being said, I think the pitching for the Mets, I don't think it's too crazy of a take. So the pitching of the Mets out rivals that of the Padres, and even some of the bats at some point when the Padres are going hot. But the Padres have their fair share of talent too, even without Fernando Tatis Jr. Personally, I think the Mets are going to win this one just because I think pitching matters more in the postseason than anything. But I think the Mets are something scary about the Mets is they might be looking past this game at the Dodgers, and that could be something that bites them. What do you think as the Mets and the Padres face off here?
Yeah, like you said, it's super like the mentality that you have going into the postseason is super important. And, it's just really tough that the Mets just had such a disappointing end to the season. So you have to wonder if the guys in the clubhouse are like, just like still super down about it. Because like once that gets started, it's kind of hard to turn that around. Both of us being Cubs fans, I think we remember in 2018 when they were leading the division for most of the season. Then they kind of had a collapse towards the end and allowed the Brewers to play them in game 163, a tiebreaker for the Central. They lose that at home. Yeah. And then they had the wild card game at home right after against the Rockies. And that might have been the worst baseball game I've ever seen.
Yeah, like no hit through 8 innings. I think we had Javi Baez single like up the middle, and that was about it. Yeah.
Terrence Gore was getting important at bats at the end of the game. Like, come on, like what are we doing here? So a little reminiscent about that. Luckily, the Mets here don't just have one game to lose. They'll have 3 chances to move on. But
3 games at home. They got Bassett, DeGrom. They're talking about maybe not playing DeGrom, but Bassett, DeGrom, and Scherzer. If they're playing all 3 games, like you have to think at home that they.
Yeah.
But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a really interesting strategy because I mean, if you're not throwing DeGrom game 1, like what if you lose game 1, I feel like you have to throw him game 2 because like
I think that's the thought. Yeah.
Yeah, like what are the takes going to be? If they lose in 2 games, they don't throw DeGrom. Like that's the New York fans are not going to be happy. But
can't have that.
Anyways, kind of like getting into these lineups here. I mean, so much star power in this series, which we love. This might be the most star-studded series wildcard game weekend. When on the Mets side, you got Lindor, you got the polar bear, Alonso,
Marte,
Water Escobar, and then the pitching is just unreal. Brown, Scherzer, Bassett, Taijuan Walker. And then on the Padres side, you got Machado and Soto, Darvish, who I think Darvish is going to be going game 1, I believe, for the Padres. Yeah. Just so much star power, a little down here for Soto, especially after coming to the Padres. But I mean, he knows what it takes in the postseason. He won a World Series when he was like 20 years old. Yeah. I feel like the Padres may have the mindset going in of like, hey, this is like fresh season, like some of our guys who weren't as good as they were the second half, like Soto, maybe Josh Hader a little bit. Maybe they're seeing the postseason starting like, hey, like it's time to go, like let's turn it on. But overall, I don't know. I just think even though the Mets were like disappointing at the end of the year, they're just too good. They have too much talent. Too many dudes in that lineup, too many fantastic arms. I mean, they have some teams are lucky to have like an ace even half as talented as Max Scherzer, and the Mets got Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, like 2 of the best pitchers of our generation. So I just think the Mets are just a little too much for the Padres in this series. It should be a great one though. I might it'll just be interesting to see how the games go. There's a lot of postseason experience on both sides. Scherzer, World Series champion. Like I said, I already said Soto is a World Series champion. And then you got other guys like sprinkled throughout who have a lot of postseason experience. Machado's played in a lot of games. Went to the World Series with the Dodgers in 2018 against the Red Sox. You got Darvish, who's also been in the World Series with the Dodgers. So I think it's just going to be a heavyweight fight, I think, for sure. But overall, I think the Mets come out on top.
Yeah, another player in star power we didn't mention for the Mets was Jeff McNeil, who's competing for a batting title. I think
Yep.
something that's gonna be interesting to watch here is just the closer matchup, and obviously the bullpen's always gonna be important.
Oh yeah, I forgot
But
about
like,
Lou Diaz. Yeah,
but Diaz, man, is just about as of a lock if it gets out of the bullpen in the ninth inning. And Hader is not. I mean, there's a reason the Brewers traded him away. It was like them saying, "We're good to go with Devin Williams. We trust him over, Hader's arm. He's lost a mile per hour or two. He started out terrible with the Padres, but I don't think people like that forget those kind of moments. And I think you're going to see times where maybe Hader's going to struggle in this series just because I don't think he's that guy anymore. He used to be untouchable, and he's lost a little bit of that, and
yeah,
that might show its face in this series.
yeah. That's just the nature of being a bullpen arm. They're so fickle year over year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how the Mets will use Diaz.
Mhm.
Another thing I love about the series now, you're playing 3 straight games in 3 straight days. Assuming that you need to do the 3 games.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see like, hey, if like Showalter like going into the series is like to Diaz like, hey, like we're gonna use you all 3 games if we need to. Like if we're in a tough spot, if it's like I want to see if it's like like game 1 and it's like the 7th inning and there's runners on like second and third and starters out of the game. The Padres are only down 1 or something like that. The Showalter go to Diaz, like knowing that he's his best arm out of the pen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll be very
That's another reason. Another thing I love about postseason baseball is
couple
just
like 6 inning or 6 out
yeah,
saves, things like that.
yeah,
We'll have to
yeah. A
see.
lot of 6-out saves, a lot of starters coming out of the bullpen.
Yep.
I imagine you'll see if they're planning to do DeGrom, Bassett, Scherzer, those 3 pitching. I imagine Taijuan Walker will get out of the bullpen for the Mets. So I just love the way bullpens are utilized. Like you said, a lot of 6-out saves, a lot of starters coming out. It's really exciting.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to see all that happen. That's when the managers really get to be creative, and guys like Terry Francona, like the real star managers start to show out in the way they think in the postseason. Moving on to the game that I'm probably the matchup I'm least excited to watch, quite honestly, in this playoffs. Although you do get some, last year magic with a few guys, the Cardinals, as they take on the Phillies. Cardinals, I think they're coming into hopefully like a storybook season with just a lot of guys riding off in the sunset with Waino, Yachty, and obviously Pujols. And then the Phillies, who are streaky this year. They can get hot at times, and they can look pretty bad at times, which it seems like they kind of ended some stretches, at least in September, on some losing streaks here, which obviously, like we talked about, never a good thing going into the postseason. Personally, for me, if this is one game I'm going to take my pick before you do, I think the Cardinals are going to win the series just in the sheer emotion of these guys and these veterans being like, this is our last postseason. Like, one, fueling the young guys, the emotion in the clubhouse. I think baseball is a lot more than just numbers, despite what people make it out to be. And I think for that reason and the situation the Cardinals are in, they're going to win this series. And not only this series, I can very much see the Cardinals making a run this year. I'm not saying they're going to win it all. I think there's too much talent with these 100-win teams, but I do think that they're going to turn some heads this postseason. And with that, I will let you break down this series.
No, I'm right there with you. I like the Cardinals as well. I don't actually like the Cardinals. I'm not being huge Cubs fans, but in terms of this postseason, I think people are forgetting about the Cardinals a little bit. I think they're being underrated a lot. The one huge plus, massive plus that they have going for them is that they are absolutely amazing on the defensive side of the ball. They have the best defense in baseball, and that is incredibly important in the postseason, because in the postseason, when you're playing such a high level of competition of baseball, all the little mistakes and little weaknesses that each team has just gets blown up even more.
Yes.
And the biggest things that leads to in the postseason is teams that aren't good at defense. That kind of gets like exposed a little bit, and that tends to to bite some teams. But I don't think that's not happening in the Cardinals. The Cardinals aren't going to make the little mistakes. And those are the things that, you have to take advantage of in the postseason. If a guy makes an error to let another runner on, you got to score, because like, you don't know if when the opportunity is going to come in the series again.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cardinals are a team that won't let you do that. They won't give up free runners via defense. They'll make the extra plays. They'll lead the extra outs. You got Arenado at third, who's one of the best defensive third baseman of all time, one of the best defensive players in general of all time. Goldschmidt, outstanding at first, both sides of the ball. Tommy Edman at short, whole outfield, a lot of fast guys that can cover the entire outfield. You got Yachty, who's a legend at catcher. So I really like the Cardinals in that sense. And they have some pretty solid pitching too. I don't think they'll blow you away, but they'll probably go Michaelis, Montgomery, and Quintana. I'm guessing are going to be the three guys. Maybe they'll throw in Wainwright a little bit just for that experience because, I mean, that dude's pitched in plenty of postseason games over his career. So, yeah, I think the Cardinals are pretty underrated. I mean, just having Arenado and Goldschmidt like back to back in the lineup. I mean, those are two MVP candidates this year. Both are sporting like a 150 plus weighted run created plus. And for our fans who don't know what that is, it's one of my favorite baseball stats. Weighted run created plus basically is a stat that kind of gives you a picture of a player's offensive value, and it's really easy to understand. So 100 is league average, and then any amount above 100 is how much percent better you are than the average MLB player. So when I say I think Goldschmidt had like a 171 rated one created plus this year, so he was 71% better offensively than the average MLB player, which means he was really good. Yeah, basically that's all it means. So the higher you are above 100, the better you are. So anyways, Goldschmidt, Arenado, two dudes in that lineup. But
definitely some good at bats on the Philly side too.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that's what I was just about to get into. Absolute sluggers on the Phillies. You know, Schwarber, who's, as we know very well, just postseason legend easily. I mean, he's the Cubs' all-time leader in postseason home runs. I think he's got like 7 or something like that for the Cubs, and he had a few last year for the Red Sox. When it comes time in the postseason, he just turns it on. He's awesome. And then I mean, Bryce Harper. I absolutely love Bryce Harper. I'm very excited that he has the opportunity to be back in the postseason. You always want, you know, when you're going into it, you want your best players in the game. Getting those big at bats, you know, it's really good for baseball. So love Bryce Harper. I'll be excited to watch him. JT Realmuto, who really picked it up in the second half. He's, I think, the best overall catcher in baseball. So yeah, they have some great hitters in that lineup, and then they have solid pitching too. I mean, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola is a really great way to kick off a series, especially when you got 3 games. So this gonna be a great series. Like you said, the Phillies are super streaky. Like they could come out like completely dead in the first couple games and like be a little overwhelmed by some of the solid Cardinals pitching, but they could also come out and be hitting just bombs in St. Louis and overwhelm the Cardinals. So this was a tough one for me, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Cardinals in the series for some of the reasons I said. You know, some of the reasons you said too. You got, you know, the intangible things. You know, they have the magic factor with Pujols and Yachty. And speaking of Pujols, I mean, obviously his 700 home run campaign was took all the attention for him. But I mean, he had actually like legitimately he had his best offensive season in like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like he was a really a super valuable player for them. And speaking of, I believe he sported like a 151 run created plus this year, which is his best in like 10 years and well above average. Like that's an all-star level right there.
Yeah, he mashed against lefties. I did not think mid-season he was going to get that 700 number, and he just didn't.
He was so good.
Picked it up second half season. He stayed hot, and, you know, he really helped that team. Another guy for the Phillies, though, we didn't mention was Nick Castellanos. So let's hope there's no tragedy for a variety of reasons, but in the baseball sense, so he doesn't have another Nick Castellanos moment. But moving to, you know, the Astros, who we've talked about after their first round bye, take on the Blue Jays, we think, in this first round of the ALDS. Talked a lot about the Blue Jays. Like to hear your opinion on the Astros and then your take on this and then your pick for this game.
Yep, love the Astros. I mean, they're just what can you say besides that they've just been a wagon in the American League for the past half decade or so. leading back to 2015. So more than almost approaching a decade now. Yeah, I mean their lineup is awesome. You know, Jose Altuve, Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, just so many. So they don't have whole Alex Bregman. He's had a reemergence this year. They really don't have holes in their lineup. Like they are completely sound offensive team. They'll just overwhelm you. I mean, I was at game what would have been game 4 of the ALDS last year when the Astros eliminated the White Sox on the south side. I was at the game with some friends. I mean, the Astros put up 10 runs like it was nothing. Like that lineup is insane. Like and talk about postseason experience. I don't know if anyone on any other team has played more games collectively than some of these guys on the Astros. Like Bregman and Altuve have been to the World Series like 3 or 4 times now. Like
it's crazy. I think they make it the playoffs. Like I said, they've been around for like the last half decade plus, making a lot of noise. A lot of these guys have been on the Astros for a long time.
Yeah.
And they didn't get all that experience and that experience to share with the younger guys and the inexperienced guys and say, this is what it takes. This is the approach for you to take. Here's the mindset. It's that, again, the intangible stuff, the stuff behind the scenes that matters. The Astros have that. Not a lot of weaknesses on this team. The thing I really like about them is like their bullpen too. You're not gonna really be able to go far in the playoffs without a good bullpen unless you can't rely on your starters to go 7-8 innings every game. That's just not realistic when you're facing great hitting on the opposition side. And with the Astros having that, in addition to some of just the best bats in baseball, like how can you pick against them? I think the Astros win this game, but are you the same way?
Yeah, I think the Astros do as well. Didn't even talk about their starting pitching. You know, you got potential Cy Young Award winner Verlander, who age doesn't seem to affect him. That dude's still going out there throwing 97 plus. So you'll have him, and then Framber Valdez is also like great starting pitcher as well. So like you said, don't see really any legitimate holes in the Astros lineup. I feel like
it's crazy.
I don't usually like to make predictions like this just because baseball is super unpredictable, but I would say the Astros basically don't really have a problem in this series at all. I feel like it might be an easy one for them.
Yeah, it feels like they're going to roll over and steamroll the Blue Jays. Moving on to the Yankees, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this team.
Yeah, I mean, you can't like talk about the Yankees without first talking about Aaron Judge. I mean, 62 home runs, the most in American League history, the most in MLB since Barry Bonds. Or I don't remember if Barry Bonds hit his or Sammy Sosa had another 60-game season last. But either way, the most home runs in an MLB season since the early 2000s. Just outstanding. Bringing up WRC plus again, his was like above 200, which is
he's double the
absolutely insane. Like when you're talking about guys who have had an above 200 season, you're talking about Ted Williams, Barry Bonds, Rogers Hornsby, like Stan Musial, like some of the best hitters of all time. By the way, a great thing about WRC plus, it's adjusted for eras and ballpark. But the era thing is cool because you get to it's an easy way to compare guys from past seasons. So you can't be like, oh well, like Stan Musial had a WRC plus in the 40s. That's like his is definitely not as good as Aaron Judge's now, but that's the thing, it is as good. That's how you're able to compare the players. Anyways, Judge, absolute monster. Nothing else you can say about him. Now that he has that weight lifted off his shoulder of the pressure of wanting to get the home run title, I think he might just like go off in this postseason. And then you have some other dudes in the lineup. You got our boy Rizzo, who we love. Rizzo. You got I can't think of some of the Yankees players right now.
Stan in action if he wants to.
Oh yeah, Stan. Yeah, I can't. Stan. Harrison Bader now has been great for them ever since he came back from injury and being traded.
Benintendi at the deadline too.
Yeah, Benintendi as well. Gleyber Torres has had a solid season, middle infield, DJ LeMahieu as well. So yeah, they got some they get some guys in the lineup, but overall in the second half, it was just like they were kind of iffy, like
definitely lackluster post All-Star break.
Yeah, they didn't do well against teams who are in the postseason. I know they had a rough series against the Cardinals. And I forget who else they had a tough time with, but I remember that Cardinals series specifically because that kind of stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Pitching wise, they got some great guys. Garrett Cole,
Nestor
and
Cortez,
Nestor Cortez, super deep bullpen. So the Yankees are an interesting team. I feel like they have a lot of pressure on them just because they're the Yankees. They're the most popular team in baseball, one of the most popular teams in sports in general, one of the most iconic teams in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And they were expected to be good this year, and they were good in the beginning. They were on like an 110 game pace,
yeah.
In the first half. Their fans are super passionate. I just feel like they might have a lot of pressure on them.
Always do. That's why
Yeah,
it's tough to win the postseason as a Yankee.
yeah, yeah. So I think this one might be a surprise to a lot of people, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the Guardians in this series.
I love it. They're hot.
Yeah.
They're streaking.
Again, for like because some of the intangibles we were talking about, right? I mean, the Guardians, I think I just see them just annoying every single team that they play, just with the way they play. Getting blue pits, moving guys over on bunts. They run a lot. They hustle out hits that other teams, may not want. But I just think this is my hot take going in. The Yankees are clearly the more talented team. They have way more star power. They should be heavily favored if the Guardians were to beat the Rays. But I don't know. I just have a feeling this is one of my upsets that you got to throw in.
Yeah.
So I think the Guardians take it.
Joe, we don't like super ton of time left, but I'd like to hear what you say about the Dodgers and the Braves series real quick.
Yeah. So Dodgers, I mean, just stars, like with so many stars. Mookie Betts, who's one of my favorite baseball players maybe ever. I absolutely love watching him play baseball. Just the way he hits and plays defense and, just does everything. Freddie Freeman, superstar. Clayton Kershaw, superstar. Walker Buehler, superstar. I mean, they're just insane how much talent they have. I think they're just going to overwhelm the Mets. I really think they are. I mean, and speaking of they have so many guys who have won a World Series on that team. It's crazy.
Guys guys that are like seemingly insignificant in this lineup seems to always step up in the postseason, like Josh Turner, Chris Taylor,
Will Smith,
Will Smith. I catch like all these guys just like you're so busy worried about the superstars in this team that like these role players who would be like pretty good guys on the roster on other lineups just step up too because you're so focused on getting Betts out and Betts is on first. He's got a ton of speed, so you got to worry about him. And then you let one right down the middle, someone crushes it. So yeah, I agree with you. I think the Dodgers win this one because they just have too much talent, honestly, to get bounced in the first round. I think it seems like they got some magic cooking with how much talent they got. And then the Braves here, who have just been absolutely unstoppable second half of this season, taking on, is the talent and the streak of the Braves enough, do you think, to beat the magic that we're saying the Cardinals have?
Yes, I think it is almost impossible to find a hole in that Braves lineup. Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, who's having a down year. He's like their fifth best player, and it doesn't even matter.
The rookies this year for the Braves on both on the offense and pitching side, if you really like, that's the reason they have 101 games. Like they're a good team, but with Acuna down, you're not winning 101 games unless you get guys like Strider and the other rookies stepping up this year. It's been insane, and their pitching is just unreal.
Yeah, on the position player side of the ball, you got Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris who have been great rookies, and then you got Swanson who's had an offensive emergence this year. He had always been a solid player each of his first few seasons of the league, especially playing short. He's one of the best shortstops defensively in the league, but this year he's kind of had an offensive emergence, showing a little more power this year. So he's been exciting to watch. And then you got, William Contreras, another rookie who's been great. And Matt Olson, it's impossible to find a hole in the lineup. It's scary. I don't think any MLB pitching staff wants to see a lineup like that. And then they're completely set on pitching, Strider, Max Fried, Kyle Wright, good. Even Charlie Morton is great.
A lot of experience with Morton too. A lot of playoff experience. Long career for that.
Yep. And then one of the reasons why they were so good in the postseason last year was they had like some guys in the bullpen ended up being like standing out in the postseason. Sorry, I'm trying to think of who I want to say. Like AJ Minter and well, I can't think of their closer right now. Either way, the Braves. I mean, it's like almost impossible to find a hole in that lineup. They're just too good, and I think I think it's enough to overcome the magic that the Cardinals might have.
So yeah. I want the Cardinals to go straight, but I think they're coming up in too big of a monster with the Braves. I think you said it perfectly. Just hard to see them winning here. Moving on to the ALCS. We talked about how good the Astros are. We talked about honestly, the Guardians riding off to win this division, beating the Yankees per our predictions. They're going to have a lot of momentum here. Quickly, is that a momentum enough to think to beat the Astros? You think the Astros take this one?
No, I think the Astros take this one too. And dare I say it again, I think the Astros may not run into a lot of trouble in the American League.
They're looking, at least the way you're setting it up. I mean, the Blue Jays, that's a great matchup for the Astros, in my opinion. And if they get the Guardians, I agree. I think it won't be the toughest series that they've faced in recent memory too. So Astros moving on. This is going to be a great matchup.
Oh my God. This will be the third straight year they would be playing in the National League Championship.
That's crazy.
Just two of the best. I think the Dodgers have won the AL West like 10 years in a row at this point. The Braves have won the NL West. The Braves have won the NL East like 6 years in a row at this point. Also, I remembered who I was wanting to talk about Braves bullpen: Tyler Matzik, Raisel Iglesias, Kenley Jansen.
Jansen, talk about a cutter out of the bullpen.
Yeah. So I would love to see this matchup again. Love to see they kind of, they have some history now. This is a legitimate rivalry, the Dodgers and the Braves. Yep. And it's even juicier this year, with the Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman and Kenley Jansen, players swapping sides now. So
who you got in this one?
I have the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are, sorry, I know we're running out of time. I think the Dodgers I've liked them the entire season. 111 wins. Come on. Like, they're insane. And now, speaking of great matchups again, World Series rematch of 2017.
Who do you think? Who do you think's going to win?
Sorry to cut you off. I'm so excited.
Who do you think's going to win this one and why, in a quick couple sentences?
Dodgers, just because of all the star power they have. It's Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Chris Taylor, Josh Turner, Gavin Lux, Will Smith. It's too much for the Astros. And the pitching too: Buehler, Kershaw, Tyler Anderson. Yeah.
Gonsolin. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. It seems like it's the Dodgers' year. I don't think anyone's going to have any qualms. You're saying it might be the easy pick, but I think it's the pick that makes the most sense. Joe, thanks so much for all the baseball knowledge. And let's check back in November and see how this bracket does. Appreciate it.
For sure. Hopefully we don't look stupid with some of the picks we made.
No, we won't. Never, Joe. Never. Yeah. Thanks again.
Yeah.